Unpacked Cafe 2022. We are so excited to be here, and we are continuing this topic we have been talking about since we've been back a week ago with our lovely Unpacked team and my Timmy Bear right here. We have been talking about mental health, and it has been a wonderful dialogue and conversation. If you have not seen it, please, I encourage you to go back and visit last week's episode. We really got into a lot of good stuff, and then we just kept talking about good stuff after the cameras are rolling. We should have a show called After the Cameras Are Rolling just to get that good, just to get that extra bonus.
Yep.
Anyway, if you did join us last week, I'd love to hear from you in the chat, and I just want to say thank you for coming back. I hope you have been enjoying what you've been hearing. I hope it has been helpful, and we're going to continue this conversation, because that's what these are. These are conversations that we want you to know that they should be okay and normal to have. I want to normalize these somewhat hard topics that we have probably grown up in the stigma of, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what you shouldn't say. And we want to talk about these things that you probably just wouldn't ever really talk about. And we probably want to reveal some secrets that you'd probably never even admit to. But these are the things that keep us healthy. And so, as always, and now, I want to continue to invite you in to this ongoing conversation that our entire Unpacked team has been having on here and out on some of these mental health issues that we face today. So, Timmy, team, are you all ready to get into it? Yeah. This is so great.
Let's go.
Last week, we covered your sermons, Timmy, and that was a wonderful conversation starter. It was. And then we happened to get into a conversation about generational curses, generational oppression, and traumas.
Yeah, generational
generational traumas.
Yep.
And is that a thing? I think one of the ladies brought up about alcohol abuse. I believe the question was, and is it really a thing? Or is it just a secret they've been holding, or a lie that they've just perpetuated, And so we just had a really good conversation about that. Do you want to chime in any on it, Timmy?
Yeah, well, we started talking about generational curses and the patterns of them, right? Mm-hmm. Millie brought up alcoholism and drug abuse and how that runs in the family. And there can be a predisposition to drugs and alcohol that is passed down through genetics. Mm-hmm. And then it only takes a slight trigger, a stressor, a trigger, a trauma to make that the first thing you lean into. Mm-hmm. And for other people, it can be promiscuity. I mean, I can spend a whole hour on subcategories. Mm-hmm. Suffice it to say, when you get down to it, it is about confronting and labeling, what we talked about last time, Narisha. How did we get into the behavior? Instead of just trying to address, how do we stop drinking in the family? How do we stop drugs in the family? How do we stop promiscuity in the family? Mm-hmm. Why did this become behavior in the first place? Mm-hmm. What are we actually medicating? Because alcoholism isn't the issue. Right. It's something that's medicating or numbing the issue. Yeah. Sex isn't the issue. It's medicating or numbing the issue, right? Drugs is not the issue. It's medicating or numbing the issue. Right. So getting down to labeling, this is how this got in the family, right? Mm-hmm. There was abuse. There was a molestation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was a trauma. There was a death in the family when grandma was 4 years old, and mom never recovered. And so this is the way her mother treated her, and then this is the way she treated y'all, and then this is the way I'm treating y'all. So it's really, there's an investigative component to dealing with trauma. You have to be curious.
Yeah. But there also has to be willingness to tell the truth.
Exactly.
There's my grandmother, so much about our family lineage and history died when she died. Because I would ask her questions. I was like, Granny, this or that. And she told me, so many times, it's none of your business. I'm like, but why, Granny? Why is not learning about our family history any of my business? And she said, it's just not. And there were so many secrets that there's so much about our family history that died when she died.
Yeah.
But she refused to tell us anything or share anything with us. So I took it upon myself and started doing some research. And very little did I know, even down to how many siblings she had. Everything was a secret.
Wow.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been a secret.
Right.
And so there's so much about our family lineage that none of us, I'm talking about from my mother on down, do we know anything about, because my grandmother just felt that everything was a secret.
So let me synthesize that. We need our parents and grandparents to not just hand down their recipes.
Right.
They need to hand down what they remember.
That's
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
That they don't want to remember.
Right.
Or else we won't have context to how we should live our life.
Right.
We're going to repeat the same mistakes you repeated, and then you're going to be looking at us like we crazy, like, I can't believe you did that. Well, you never told me not to.
Right.
But you know what? I want to jump in there too, as far as the grandmothers, because my grandmother was the sweetest person in the world. I was telling everybody that. But my grandmother had an issue of drinking, and I mean, but she never said why she drank so much. There was no indication because her husband at the time, he was a very quiet person. There was no abuse that I could see why she drank so much. But she was hurting.
Wait a second, Mommy. She wasn't married.
Okay,
See, she wasn't married.
Yeah, let's get the truth out.
I mean,
At the
she's
time,
gone
okay,
now, but at the time,
I was told that they were married. Okay, so that's
Right.
okay. So okay,
But they weren't married.
but they weren't married after I grew up. Just gonna
Okay.
After you grew up, they weren't married when you was a child.
It's a different show.
I'll put my great grandmother out there.
I grew up thinking my grandmother was married because the man was.
They were always there.
They was always.
That's called shacking.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
No, but that's good.
That's right.
Having the proper narrative, and I want you to
Yeah.
finish what you're saying.
Okay.
But having the proper narrative
Yes.
is so important. I thought this,
That's
and they
right.
let me think it.
That's
Yes,
right.
they
Right?
didn't correct it.
Yeah, they didn't correct it.
That's right.
But please,
Exactly.
please, that's good.
Yeah, they were shacking.
And then after a while, I mean, several years down the road, after he became a teenager, then he moved away and married a woman. He married a woman. They had a bunch of kids, but he never had one with my grandmother. But as far as we were told, and the way how he treated us was like he was still there. He came around every week and see her. But my thing, going back to her drinking, she has been drinking long before he moved out. She was always severe and was always sad about something. She would not say. She would sit, you know what I mean? And so my mother would always say to her, why don't you stop drinking? But no one asked her why she was drinking so much. No one seems to know. She was just, there's something that she carried to her grave, and no one knows. My mother never said anything, but she was always angry with my grandmother, you know what I mean?
Did your
And-
mom start drinking?
I'm sorry?
Did your mom have drinking problem? Any issues with alcohol?
My mother? No. My grandma's the only one, you know, because, and as far as I know, even my sister and her family, none of us drink like my mother ever do. I mean, was a drunk, but, you know, she would, and there were times when, as growing up, she would tell me to go to the store and get cigarettes. She used to like the Camel cigarettes. So I would go, but I never buy her alcohol, but she liked the Camel cigarettes. So, and then when I got married, my husband and her became good friends because they would start drinking together.
They're drinking buddies.
Yeah, they're drinking buddies, you know what I mean? But no, but my grandmother, I loved her very, very much. Everyone loved her because she never abused or beat us or anything like that. But she was also a mentor for me. She would, for some reason, maybe the Lord had her to protect me for something that unforeseen to me. And so I was brought up very, very strict, very, to the point where all the kids on the block had to come and play in front of the house. I wasn't allowed to go next door to any neighbor or drink from anyone or eat from anyone. We grew up not eating from anyone. My whole family, we were like that. And even my brother, when he got married, he would always depend on me to fix his lunch for him. And his wife got angry because she says, we're married, why can't I, why you depend on your sister? So my mother said, well, now you have to depend on your wife. But get back to where I was saying before, that my grandmother, even though she had this drinking issue, she made it clear that I had to pray morning and night to the Lord. I had to kneel on the floor and pray to my Lord, and first thing in the morning and last thing at night, and that has been a thing. And she would pray for me and was like a guiding angel. So even though she had her drinking problem, she was also very, very
Protective.
protective, but also had that fear of the Lord,
Yes.
you know, and like last night, Juliet says, someone says, why do you say gospel alive? That's because my mother would beat into me. You have to say it all the time and so automatically it comes.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to,
Or the phrase, God's
the fear of the
lives.
Lord,
Yep.
you know? So I really grew up in a family where everyone feared the Lord, even though mommy had a drinking problem. But I understand.
I'm curious, okay? Because your grandmother wasn't married to this man and drank, and subsequently was very strict on you, right? We don't know what her issue was, but the way she projected it on you was to be very, very strict, right? And it protected you from something, but you don't even have context
Yep.
What it was.
to what you were
was.
protected from,
Right.
right? So grandmama wasn't married. Was your mom married?
No.
None of them believed in the sanctity of
Okay.
marriage for
So what-
many generations.
So this is what I want to bring up. And I think we talked about this in the last episode when it comes to you are producing culture, whether you are
Yeah.
speaking it or saying it.
That's right. Your
With
actions.
all that strictness,
They weren't
Right.
get married.
right?
Yeah.
It didn't pass to the next generation because I saw more than what you said.
That's right.
That's good.
That's right.
I saw more
Right.
of what you said.
Your actions outlive.
Yeah, your actions literally
your words.
outweigh
That's right.
the
Your-
stuff you spoke.
Right.
So even though you were like, be careful and don't go over here and don't go over there and da-da-da-da, that didn't translate to the next generation.
That's right.
And this is why words are so important,
Yes.
right? God didn't leave us actions.
Yeah.
He left us word and action.
That's right.
And his words and his actions weighed the same.
Yes.
For God so loved the world that he gave
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
his only begotten son, right? It weighs the same. The action and the words weigh the same. It wasn't like, I love you, and everybody, we just sat down here dying in our sins. Like, hey, but I told you I loved you though.
Right.
Right? The actions were there. So I'm like really riled up and super passionate about this, and I wanna,
Be riled up, honey.
girl, I hope it leads to discourse and discussion with us that, and our viewers, that we start to become people who generationally give words and deeds that allow the next generation to make informed decisions
Yeah.
and be a little bit better than we are.
Yes.
We're not changing nothing overnight. This ain't no Thanos snap. Overnight, we're gonna be better. But if this is something that we can actually make normal, like, hey, this is what grandma did, right? Instead
Right.
of whispering it,
Right.
right? Like, okay, your grandmother was never married. It's okay. Nobody's calling her a hoe.
We're
Right.
doing the math anyway.
Right, exactly, right, exactly. We're putting two and two together,
Yes.
right? You thought they were married till you realized they weren't. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then mom the same way. It's like, that doesn't make them bad people. It just makes them repeaters of behavior that they
Right.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is very good. Mommy, thank you for that story and the wonderful expose on the family. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, talking, I mean, because basically I always wanted to, and I still don't know now why
Yeah.
why it was never mentioned by my mother, anyone,
Right.
why my grandmother drank so much.
But
No.
you know what? The most important thing to me of this story is what you acknowledged as this is what I am protected, or she covered me and made me make sure I knew the Lord. And at the same time, I equally also fully acknowledge that you were unhappy,
Yes.
that you were very sad, and that you drunk.
Right.
There was a reason why you were
Right.
drinking. you didn't say why, but I acknowledge.
Yeah.
And I can see that something was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't have the words because you didn't give me the words.
Yeah.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I can't see your actions.
Yeah.
Right.
Because your actions speak.
Right.
That's right.
Yes,
Your
they do.
actions have the words,
Good.
just
Yeah.
like your mouth does.
Yeah.
So even every time that I've heard this story, you know, because of course my mother shared it with me many times. And in fact, my middle name is named after my great-grandmother, which is her grandmother. But I've always taken away the two. She protected my mom. She was very strict with her.
Right.
And my mother had the closer relationship to her grandmother than she did her own mother. Right? And that's even something there for whatever reason. But because of this issue we're bringing up now, it's always been, she drank a lot and she was unhappy, but she kept me on my knees. She kept praying for me. She made sure I was protected. I couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't do anything. At the same time, again, but I acknowledge my grandmother was not happy.
So this is what we have to learn to do. We have to get the buts out of the narrative. And we have to start putting and.
That's good.
My grandmother was alcoholic. And
Yeah.
she was my protector.
Yeah.
We have to, because both are true.
Right.
Both
Right?
are true.
If we put the but in there, it's like, hey, she was this, but at least she protected me.
Right.
Because that is that generation.
That's what I'm saying.
And
But
that is
we
the-
have to integrate it. It has to be integrated.
Right. So, but the average person that wouldn't know to integrate it, that's how they're going to say it. This was this, but this was also this. So as you're saying, put the two together, it acknowledges both sides
Have
and
to.
not dismisses. She did this, she did that too, but that's no big deal.
Yeah.
This was the most important part.
Both.
But you have to put them both together, to your point, to make it one powerful unit, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And sometimes when the negative part seems so negative and harsh, you almost don't want to attribute that to them. You know what I mean? Because that's one thing. The average person, it's hard for them to want to admit they was a good person, but they was alcoholic, or they were heavy drinkers, or they're really drug addicts, like really, really drug addicts. And not that they're not, but just for the average person, sometimes you don't want to have to say that about what
Yes.
they are. He's
Okay.
so anxious. He's so anxious. Go ahead,
Y'all
Timmy.
got
Go
me
ahead,
started,
Timmy.
okay?
Go ahead, Timmy.
We have to stop fragilizing our family trees.
Yeah.
I knew that's
That's
what you were going
good.
to say.
We have to stop fragilizing the narrative of our family history,
Fragilizing or being ashamed,
right? There's
self-ashamed of it.
the history of America is good and gross.
Yeah.
Good and terrible.
Okay, so the Bible narrative
Yes.
is good,
Good
and
and
bad,
terrible. That's right.
right?
Yes.
It was all good till chapter 3 of the first book, so it didn't take long.
Right.
Right? And if we would be as honest about our narratives as the Bible is about its narrative, I think we would just do ourselves such a good service, because our bodies know when we're lying to it, right?
That's right.
And you can't find peace when there's a narrative that you just won't come clean with, and that you're
Right.
kind of skirting around, and it's like, my family's cool, but and it's like, you know what? If I can remove most of these buts with some ands, I think I can integrate my life
Embrace
and start to
them both.
celebrate all of it, because
Right.
my grandmother was really, really good, but it had to have an impact on you that she was sad all the time,
Right.
drinking.
Correct.
You were robbed of like a doting grandma that like, let's go to the park and you know what I mean? Let me give you some stories and let me share with you. And your grandmother, you said that didn't, never disclosed
Nothing.
Anything.
like basic information, like how many siblings do you have? Like,
Right.
how is that none of your business? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I have great aunts and uncles and you don't want me to know who they are? Like,
Right.
I don't have a robust, picture of my family tree. And so Again, I've done so much work around this, is why I'm super passionate about it. But
I can't tell it all.
Yeah, but fragilization robs the narrator, us, of a complete story.
Right.
Well, I don't want to say that because, I don't want y'all to think my mom is, no, this ain't about, this is just about a complete picture,
Right. And you know, Tim,
right?
they discuss everything among themselves. Like my mother, grandmother, and great grandmother, they were behind closed door and they had their conversation.
Not in front of the kids.
But we weren't allowed to hear or listen to their conversation, so we never knew everything. Basically, right now, it's like Judith's doing the family tree, and she's recovering. She's discovering things
Uncovering
that
all the
I don't
family
even know,
secrets.
that I've never heard of. So she is doing a lot that I'm getting is like, I'm fascinated because I want to know too that, with my mother, they never said things to us.
Right.
And they never taught us anything. So, and so we have to, we grew up not knowing anything. A few things I knew from my brother because he was the oldest. So he had a little bit more information. But my sister and I had no information at all. So they would have that closed door and the discussion going on, and we had to
They left everybody
out.
It's one of those things where what my mother is saying is that I've been working on a family tree because I'm from the islands. We're from the islands, and so
Yeah, you are.
my my mother's family lineage is from Turks and Caicos, although she was born in the Bahamas and my father is Jamaican. And so even in those generations, unless you sort of saw them and you were around them, they didn't really share and tell. And a lot of that is cultural as well.
Yeah. Right.
And we already know that it's generational. And so really, it wasn't until my mother's brother was the first person in our family, really, in our lineage to get married on my mother's side. None of them, any of them were married. And so, and then his sisters got married, but it wasn't, they just all lived together until they didn't. Now, part of that is just an island culture as well. Unfortunately, in some of those environments there, it's just almost normal to just live with someone, have kids, and not really apply the institution of marriage because of the way society and culture is. But that is not necessarily what I believe. I'm here for all the married life with Mr. Timmy. But my point is that generationally, okay, even that passes down. So I'm doing this family tree, and in this, we're finding all the things. Well, man, they had sisters, they had brothers. Were they married? Well, none of them married,
Right.
And then realizing, okay, well, my grandmother, so my mother's mother, they have half-sisters from men that were married, And so now we're having a hard time because they weren't married and the way culture was back then, you can't even put a daddy's name on a birth certificate because he was married to somebody else. And if there's legal, legal ramifications of then is only if he's married to that wife, can you put his name as a father? So it's all this red tape of all these secrets.
Yeah.
Right.
See what I mean? Of all these secrets that are perpetuated. And so I'm overturning this and that. And I'm not ashamed of it. It's people. There's nothing I could do to change it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't
It's just,
bother me.
it's
It is
fact.
what it is. Yeah, it's just a fact.
It's not an indictment.
No, it's not
Yeah.
an indictment. It is what it is. I was able to meet my grandmother, my mother's mother. I wasn't privileged to meet my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother who, I'm named after. But at the end of the day, I'm not over here thinking, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they would do that.
Yeah.
They're people.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the situation was at the time. We don't know what the story was. We don't know. And so, but people carry hurts and pains that because they don't know what to put words to.
Right.
And because of maybe gender oppression, all right, that they're as women, in some cases, okay, we can't say certain things, women be in your place, et cetera, that when I know we'll get more into that. There's many factors that silence people.
Right.
That's my point.
correct.
Is many factors silence people. And how can we get around it? Well, we can't change what has been done, but we can change how we progress forward and making sure that we are the biggest mouths and the biggest voices for breaking those silences.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have been having great conversations. And so I'm so glad you have been with us. I pray that this has been really good for you, and we are not going to stop here. So if you would come back next week for more of these amazing conversations. Please use the resources that are on your screen. They are there for you. Please call, inquire, and see what they're about, and how can we get help one step closer to our mental health healing.